The sound of helicopter blades slicing through the air grows distant as I press my hand against the bullet wound in my abdomen. Blood seeps between my fingers, warm and relentless. Each laboured breath sends fresh waves of pain through my body. My name is Juniper Ellis, and this morning I was just a bank teller with a boring life. Now I'm bleeding out behind an abandoned Chevy, while the man I thought I loved carries another woman to safety. It wasn't supposed to end this way. 3 months ago, my life was painfully ordinary. I'd been working at First National for 7 years, living in the same one-bedroom apartment since college, driving the same second-hand Honda. My Friday nights consisted of takeout and reality TV. My colleagues called me dependable. My few friends called occasionally. My family, well, we'll get to that. Then Ethan walked in. He wasn't like our usual customers with their crumpled deposit slips and impatient sighs. Everything about him seemed effortless. The tailored charcoal suit, the confident stride, the smile that made my rehearsed "How can I help you today?" catch in my throat. "Just setting up a new account," he said, sliding his ID across the counter. Ethan James. His fingers brushed mine as he handed me his paperwork, and I felt a jolt that should have been my first warning. But warnings are always clearer in hindsight, aren't they? He came back the next day, and the day after. Small transactions, nothing suspicious, just enough to see me again. He learned my name, asked about my day in a way that made it seem like he actually cared about the answer. "You know what I think, Juniper?" he said one afternoon, leaning against my counter after everyone else had left. "I think you're wasted here." I laughed. "And where should I be?" His eyes locked with mine. "Anywhere but behind this glass." 2 weeks later, I was sitting across from him at a restaurant I couldn't afford, drinking wine I couldn't pronounce. He talked about places he'd been. Paris, Tokyo, Rio, like they were just stops on a commuter train. I soaked in every word, every glance, every accidental touch. "What do you really do?" I finally asked, because no one sets up that many accounts. He smiled, slow and dangerous. "I solve problems for people who can afford solutions." I should have walked away then, but when he reached for my hand across the table, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. "You're different, Juniper," he whispered. "You see things others don't." God, I was such a fool. Our relationship progressed with dizzying speed. Romantic dinners turned into passionate nights, weekend getaways to places I'd only seen in magazines. For the first time in my life, I felt special, chosen. But there were signs, phone calls he'd take in another room, days when he'd disappear without explanation, the way he'd sometimes study the bank's security cameras when he thought I wasn't looking. "Just one job," he said one night as we lay tangled in my sheets. "One job, and we'll have enough to disappear forever." His eyes had sparkled with that reckless charm that made me break every rule I'd ever lived by. I believed him. It started innocently enough. Questions about the bank's procedures, the manager's schedule, the vault timing. I told myself it was curiosity, not reconnaissance. Then came the request for access codes. "It's a victimless crime, June," he assured me, tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. "Insurance covers everything, no one gets hurt, and we get a fresh start together." I hesitated, but only briefly. By then, I was already in too deep, already imagining our life afterward. A beach somewhere, no more time clocks, no more loneliness. That's when he introduced me to Valerie. "She's essential to the plan," Ethan explained, as the stunning redhead assessed me with cool green eyes. "Val's the best safecracker on the East Coast." What he didn't say was that they had history. I saw it in the familiar way they communicated without words, the inside jokes I wasn't part of. But Ethan assured me it was over between them. "It's just business," he said, another lie to add to the collection. The plan was meticulous. 3 of us, in and out in 7 minutes. I would disable the alarm system using my credentials. Valerie would crack the main vault. Ethan would handle the guards. No violence, he promised. Just a mild sedative in their morning coffee. The night before, Ethan held me close. "This time tomorrow, it's just you and me," he whispered. "Forever." I believed him because I needed to. Because admitting I'd thrown away my career, my reputation, my entire life for a man who was using me was too painful to contemplate. Morning came. I arrived at work as usual, nodded to my colleagues, fought the nausea rising in my throat. At precisely 9:17 a.m., I entered the override code that would create a 3-minute window where the silent alarm would be disabled. Ethan and Valerie entered wearing maintenance uniforms, pushing a cart of cleaning supplies. Everything was going according to plan. Until it wasn't. Marcus, our newest security guard, hadn't had the tainted coffee. He spotted Valerie heading toward the vault and reached for his gun. "Down!" Ethan shouted, pulling his own weapon. The sound of gunshots shattered the carefully orchestrated silence. Customers screamed. A bullet grazed Marcus's shoulder. He fired back wildly. I felt it before I heard it. A searing, white-hot pain tearing through my side. I looked down to see crimson blooming across my white blouse. "Ethan?" I gasped, collapsing against a desk. Time slowed as our eyes met across the chaos. I saw something shift in his face, a calculation. Then Valerie called his name, and he turned away. They made it to the vault while I pressed trembling hands against my wound. The alarm blared, piercing and relentless. In the distance, sirens wailed. When they emerged, Valerie was limping. Blood stained her pant leg. Marcus had managed to hit her too before other guards subdued him. Ethan supported her weight, his arm around her waist. They passed where I lay slumped against the wall. "Ethan," I whispered, "please." He hesitated. For one heartbreaking moment, I thought he'd choose me. "I can only carry one of you," he said, his voice hollow. "She has the codes to the offshore accounts." That's when I knew. I was never the partner. I was just the access point. "You promised," I said, hating the plea in my voice. His eyes flickered with something regret, pity. "I'm sorry, June." Then they were gone, leaving me behind as the bank descended into chaos. Somehow, in the confusion, I dragged myself out a side exit. Police were converging on the front of the building. No one noticed a wounded woman staggering into the alley behind the bank. I made it 3 blocks before collapsing behind the Chevy. Through a haze of pain, I saw the helicopter descend in the distance, their escape plan, the one Ethan had assured me would carry us both to freedom. I watched as he half-carried Valerie across the empty lot. Watched as he lifted her into the waiting chopper. Watched as they rose into the sky, becoming smaller and smaller until they were just a speck against the clouds. Now, I lie here, pressing my hand against the bullet wound in my abdomen. Blood seeps between my fingers, warm and relentless. The helicopter is gone. The sirens are getting closer, but not close enough. Rain begins to fall, washing my blood into storm drains. I think about my sister who warned me about him. "He's too perfect," she said. "Nobody's that perfect without hiding something." I hadn't spoken to her since that fight. I think about my mother, who I've avoided for years because her disappointment in my ordinary life was too much to bear. What would she say now? I think about the letter I never sent to my father, the one explaining why I couldn't forgive him for leaving. Through blurring vision, I watch the rescue helicopter become a speck in the grey sky. They think this story is over. They think I'm already dead. The pain keeps me conscious, and consciousness keeps me angry. My fingers find a shard of glass from my shattered phone. I clutch it tight, letting the sharp edge bite into my palm. A different kind of pain, one I choose. Because what Ethan doesn't know is that before the heist, I made a copy of everything every plan, every contact, every offshore account, and I sent it all to someone who owes me a favour, someone who knows how to wait for the perfect moment. If I survive this, and I plan to, Ethan and Valerie will learn what happens when you leave Juniper Ellis to die. The rain falls harder now, cold against my fevered skin. I close my eyes and think of revenge. It burns hotter than the bullet wound, gives me something to hold on to as darkness creeps in from the edges. This isn't the end of my story. It's just the beginning. I don't remember being found. The paramedics said later that a homeless man heard my moaning and called 911 from a payphone. By the time they reached me, I'd lost nearly 40% of my blood volume. The doctors called it a miracle that I survived at all. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital room flanked by 2 police officers. Detective Mira Santos sat beside my bed, her dark eyes scrutinising me with equal parts suspicion and curiosity. "Welcome back, Miss Ellis," she said, tucking a strand of short black hair behind her ear. "You've caused quite the stir." My throat felt like sandpaper. "Water," I croaked. She held a cup to my lips, letting me drink before continuing. "Security footage shows you deactivating the alarm system right before the robbery. Your fingerprints are on the override panel. Your blood is at the scene." She leaned forward. "But you weren't in the helicopter. Why?" I turned my face away, feeling tears burn my eyes. "He left me to die." "Who? Ethan James?" She flipped through her notes. "No record of an Ethan James matching your description. The ID he used at your bank was fake." Of course it was. I closed my eyes, remembering his smile, his promises, every lie. "Help us catch him," Santos said. "Cooperate, and the DA might be willing to cut a deal." I almost laughed. A deal? As if my life hadn't already been shattered beyond repair. "I don't know where they went," I whispered. "He never told me the full plan." Another lie, but one that bought me time, because revenge is a dish best prepared in private. They charged me anyway. Accessory to armed robbery, conspiracy, fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. I was looking at 15 years minimum. My court-appointed attorney seemed more interested in his phone than my case. My bail was set at $500,000. Might as well have been 50 million. No one was coming to post it for me. Until someone did. The morning of my transfer to county lockup, the guard handed me my release papers. "Bail's been paid," she said, looking as confused as I felt. In the processing room, a tall woman in an impeccable pantsuit waited for me. Her silver hair was cut in a severe bob, her posture military straight. "Miss Ellis," she said, extending her hand. "Alexandra Rousseau, we have a mutual acquaintance." In the sleek black sedan outside, she handed me a burner phone. "Call this number when you're ready to talk. Not before." She dropped me at a nondescript motel on the edge of town. Room 212 had been paid for a week in advance. Inside, I found clean clothes, basic toiletries, and an envelope containing $5,000 in cash. I sat on the bed, examining the phone. Only one number was programmed into it, the same number I'd sent the files to the night before the heist. Memory flashed, me sitting at my kitchen table at 3 a.m., hands trembling as I copied everything from Ethan's laptop while he slept. Insurance, I told myself, just in case. I hadn't known who to send it to until I remembered Julian. Julian Green and I had grown up together. He'd been the awkward boy next door, brilliant but socially inept. I'd stood up for him when bullies cornered him after school. Years later, when my half-sister got caught up with a dangerous crowd, Julian, by then working in digital security, helped track her down before things got worse. "I owe you, Juniper," he'd said. "Anything, any time." I hadn't spoken to him in years, but I'd sent everything to his encrypted email with a simple message. "Hold this. I might need it someday." I dialed the number. "I was wondering when you'd call." Julian's voice had deepened since I'd last heard it. "Did you look at what I sent you?" I asked. "Enough to know you're in serious trouble." A pause. "Enough to know you have leverage." "I need to find them," I said. "And then what? Turn them in to clear your name?" I closed my eyes, seeing Ethan's face as he walked away. "No, something else." Julian was quiet for a moment. The old Juniper would never talk like that. The old Juniper died behind that car. Another pause. "Come to the address Alex gave you, tomorrow at noon." The line went dead. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment with Ethan. Every kiss, every promise, every red flag I'd willfully ignored. The wound in my side throbbed, a constant reminder of my foolishness. The next day, Alex drove me to an unmarked office building downtown. Julian was older, his boyish features sharpened by time, but I recognized the intensity in his eyes. "You look terrible," he said by way of greeting. "Getting shot will do that to you." He led me to a room filled with computer monitors. "I've been analysing the information you sent. Your boyfriend was smart, but not as smart as he thought." Julian pulled up a series of documents. "These offshore accounts? They're sophisticated, but they leave traces." "Can you track them?" "Already have." He pointed to a map on one of the screens. "They made 2 transfers, one to the Cayman Islands, then another to an account in Zurich. Classic misdirection. But their final destination?" He zoomed in on a coastal town in Montenegro. A little place called Kotor. Beautiful, isolated, minimal extradition enforcement. Hope flared in my chest. "So, they're there?" "They purchased a villa under the name Valerie used on her fake passport. Elizabeth Crane." Julian pulled up a satellite image. "Waterfront property, very private, very expensive." I stared at the screen, imagining them there, lounging by a pool, spending my money, believing they'd gotten away with it all. "What's your plan, Juniper?" Julian asked. "Because if it's revenge, you should know. You're still technically a fugitive. You skip bail, you'll never come back to a normal life." "Normal," I echoed. "My normal life was killing me slowly. This," I gestured to my wound, "just sped up the process." Alex, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. "There's another option." She explained that she worked for a private security firm, one that occasionally contracted with government agencies that needed problems solved discreetly. The people Ethan and Valerie stole from, they weren't just any bank customers. Several of those safety deposit boxes belonged to individuals of significant interest to certain agencies. "You want what they stole," I said, understanding dawning. "We want it returned, yes. The cash is irrelevant, it's the information we care about." Julian looked uncomfortable. "I told you she'd be valuable." I glanced between them. "You two know each other?" "Julian consults for us occasionally," Alex said smoothly. "When we found your name connected to the robbery, he recognised it." "So that's how they'd found me, why they'd paid my bail." "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked. Alex's smile reminded me of a shark. "We help you get to Montenegro. You help us recover our property. In exchange, we make your legal problems disappear." "And Ethan and Valerie?" "Not our concern, as long as we get what we need." She studied me. "What happens to them would be entirely up to you." Freedom and revenge, handed to me on a silver platter. It seemed too good to be true. "Why me? You have resources, people." "Because you know them. Because Ethan won't see you coming." Alex leaned forward. "And because Julian vouched for you?" I looked at Julian, who shrugged. "You saved my life once. Seems fair to return the favour." 2 days later, I began my transformation. The physical training was brutal. My body, still healing from the gunshot wound, screamed in protest as Alex's team pushed me through drills designed to build strength and stamina. I learned basic self-defense, how to handle a gun, how to disappear in a crowd. The mental preparation was worse. Hours spent studying Ethan and Valerie's patterns from surveillance, learning to predict their movements, their reactions, rehearsing scenarios until my responses became automatic. You need to be ready for anything, Alex warned, especially your own emotions. When you see him again, all your feelings will come rushing back. Love, hate, fear. You can't let them control you. At night, alone in the safe house they had moved me to, I stared at photos of Ethan, forcing myself to see beyond the charming smile to the calculated coldness beneath. I made myself remember how it felt to lie bleeding on the pavement while he walked away. It helped that every day brought new discoveries about who he really was. His real name was Connor Reed. He had a history of seducing bank employees for access, though I was the first one he'd actually involved in the heist itself. There had been others before me, other women who'd believed his lies, who'd been discarded when they were no longer useful. Valerie Cooper was his longtime partner, both professionally and personally. Their relationship had never ended. I was just a means to an end. I took the rage these revelations sparked and moulded it into something cold and sharp. A weapon. 6 weeks after waking up in the hospital, I stood in front of a mirror in a Belgrade hotel room, barely recognizing myself. My once mousy brown hair was now platinum blonde, cut in a sleek bob. Coloured contacts turned my hazel eyes ice blue. The physical training had honed my body, erasing the softness that Ethan had once praised. "Your new identity," Julian said, handing me a passport. Ariana Mitchell, American expatriate, independently wealthy, the perfect neighbour for a couple hiding from their past. "The villa next to theirs just came on the market," Alex explained. "What a coincidence." The plan was simple: befriend them, get close enough to access their home security system, locate the stolen drives, and extract them. How I managed that, and what happened to Ethan and Valerie afterward, was up to me, as long as I delivered what Alex's employers wanted. "Remember," Julian said as we went through final preparations, "they think you're dead. That's your advantage." I nodded, thinking of the obituary that had run in the local paper after I'd skipped bail. Juniper Ellis, wanted in connection with the First National robbery, found dead in a motel room. Apparent suicide. "What if he recognises me?" I asked, the question that had been haunting me for weeks. Julian's smile was grim. "Men like Ethan see what they expect to see. A dead woman doesn't register as a threat." The night before my flight to Montenegro, I couldn't sleep. I stood on the hotel balcony, watching the city lights below, and thought about the person I used to be. The careful, cautious bank teller who'd never broken a rule in her life. She was gone now, replaced by someone harder, someone capable of doing what needed to be done. My phone buzzed with a text from Julian. "Last chance to back out?" I thought of Ethan carrying Valerie to safety while I bled out behind that abandoned car. I typed back, "No turning back now." In the darkness of that Belgrade night, I made a promise to myself. This time, I wouldn't be the one left behind. As the plane took off the next morning, carrying me toward Montenegro and the reckoning that waited there, I felt strangely calm. The frightened, bleeding woman in the alley was gone. In her place was someone who knew exactly what she was capable of. Someone who was done being a victim. Montenegro greeted me with breathtaking views and suffocating humidity. The Bay of Kotor stretched before me like something from a postcard crystal blue waters, surrounded by towering mountains, medieval towns clinging to the shoreline, paradise for tourists and fugitives alike. Through high-powered binoculars, I watched Ethan, Connor lounging by the infinity pool of his villa, drink in hand, without a care in the world. Valerie sunbathed beside him, her leg now healed, her red hair gleaming in the Mediterranean sun. They looked happy. content, like they deserved their new life. The sight of them made my gunshot wound throb with phantom pain. I'd been in Kotor for 3 days before making contact. The role of Ariana Mitchell, wealthy divorcee looking for a fresh start, came surprisingly easy. I accidentally bumped into Valerie at the local market, helped her with her dropped groceries, and accepted her casual invitation to their upcoming dinner party. "We don't know many people here yet," she said, her smile friendly but eyes calculating. "It would be lovely to have another American around." I thanked her warmly, betraying nothing of the ice forming in my veins at the sound of her voice. The night of the party, I stood before my mirror in a seafoam silk dress that highlighted my new blonde hair and blue contacts. The scar on my abdomen, Ethan's parting gift, remained hidden beneath the fabric, an angry reminder of why I was here. Julian's voice came through my earpiece. "Security system is standard. I can override it once you're inside. Remember, the safe is likely in the master bedroom." "I remember," I said, applying another coat of lipstick, a shade I'd never have worn in my old life. "Just get us the drives," Alex added. "Everything else is secondary." But it wasn't secondary to me. Not anymore. The Ethan who greeted me at the door was exactly as I remembered and completely different. Same devastating smile, same easy charm. But now I saw the predator behind his eyes, the practiced way he took my hand. "Ariana," he said, the name that wasn't mine rolling off his tongue. "Val mentioned meeting an intriguing American. She didn't say you were so stunning." I smiled, letting him kiss my cheek, fighting the urge to recoil. "The view from your home is even more spectacular than mine. You two have created quite the paradise." "We like our privacy," Valerie said, appearing behind him. Her gaze swept over me, assessing. "Don't we all?" I replied lightly. I spent the evening charming the other guests, mostly wealthy Europeans with deliberately vague backgrounds. I allowed Ethan to refill my wine glass repeatedly, pretending to drink more than I actually did. I laughed at his jokes, asked interested questions about their supposed import-export business, and noted the security keypads at every doorway. As the night progressed, I made my move. "Your home is incredible," I said, deliberately swaying slightly as if the wine had affected me. "Could I possibly see the rest of it?" Ethan exchanged a quick glance with Valerie, so fast I might have missed it if I hadn't been looking for it. "Of course," he said, placing his hand on the small of my back. "I'll give you the tour." As we moved through the house, Julian confirmed in my ear. "Accessing their system now. Keep him occupied for 2 more minutes." I let my fingers brush against Ethan's arm. "You remind me of someone I used to know?" His smile never faltered. "Someone important?" "I thought so, once." I looked directly into his eyes. Turned out, he wasn't who I thought he was. Something flickered across his face. Unease, perhaps. But it vanished quickly. "Men can be disappointing that way," he said, guiding me toward a terrace overlooking the bay. Away from the bedrooms. Away from what I needed to access. "I need the bathroom," I said, adding a slight slur to my words. "Too much of your excellent wine." He hesitated, then pointed down the hall. "First door on the left." Instead, I turned right, moving quickly toward what I knew was the master suite. Behind me, I heard him call out, but I'd already slipped inside, locking the door behind me. 30 seconds, Julian instructed, as I moved to the painting on the far wall, a mediocre landscape hiding a wall safe. "Code is 84731. My fingers flew over the keypad. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of cash, several passports, a gun, and a small metal case containing the drives Alex's employers wanted so desperately. "I've got it," I whispered, slipping the case into my clutch as someone knocked sharply on the bedroom door. "Ariana!" Ethan's voice, all charm gone now. "You seem to have gotten lost." "Exit through the ensuite," Julian said. "Window leads to the side garden. car is waiting at the end of the drive." I moved toward the bathroom just as the bedroom door burst open. Ethan stood there, his expression cold in a way I'd never seen before, the mask completely dropped. "Looking for something?" he asked. I backed away, clutch held tightly against my side. "Sorry," I said, forced laughter in my voice. Wine got turned around. He stepped into the room, shutting the door behind him. "Who are you?" "Ariana Mitchell. We just met, remember?" I continued my innocent act, but he wasn't buying it anymore. "Cut the shit," he snapped. "You're not drunk. You haven't touched your wine all night. Now who the hell are you and what are you doing in my bedroom?" I glanced toward the bathroom door. He followed my gaze. "You're not going anywhere until you tell me who sent you." That's when I let Ariana fall away. I straightened my posture, dropped the feigned intoxication, and looked him directly in the eyes. My real eyes, behind the blue contacts. "Don't you recognize me, Ethan? Or should I call you Connor?" Confusion crossed his face, followed by dawning realization, and then, most satisfying of all, fear. "Juniper," he whispered, face draining of colour. "That's impossible. You're dead." "Am I?" I smiled, feeling the scar on my side pull tight. "Disappointing, isn't it? When people don't stay where you leave them." He backed away, eyes wide. "How? You should have made sure I was dead before you got on that helicopter." I advanced on him now, all pretense gone. "Did you even think about me afterward? Or was I just a footnote in your perfect escape plan?" His hand moved toward his pocket. Reaching for a weapon, I realized, but I was faster. The small pistol Julian had insisted I carry was already in my hand, pointed steadily at his chest. "Don't," I said quietly. Footsteps in the hallway, then Valerie's voice. "Connor, is everything okay?" His eyes flickered to the door, then back to me. "Everything's fine, Val. Just helping Ariana sober up a bit." When her footsteps receded, he asked, "What do you want?" I laughed softly. "Originally, to make you suffer like I did, to watch everything you built here burn to the ground." I held up the clutch containing the drives. "But now, I've got what I really came for." "The drives," he said, understanding immediately. "Who are you working with? Interpol, FBI? Does it matter? The important thing is, they're willing to leave you alone if you give them what they want." Hope flashed in his eyes. Pathetic, really, how quickly he shifted to self-preservation. "And what about you?" he asked carefully. "What do you want?" I considered him. This man I'd once loved enough to betray everything I believed in. This man who'd left me bleeding on the pavement without a backward glance. "I want you to live, Ethan. I want you to live knowing that I beat you, that I found you when no one else could." I stepped closer. "And I want you to live looking over your shoulder, wondering if today's the day I decide revenge isn't enough." Fear and calculation warred on his face. I recognized the look. He was trying to figure out if he could overpower me, take the gun, turn this around. "Don't," I warned, seeing his muscles tense. "I'm not the same woman you left to die." "Juniper, listen," he began, that persuasive tone creeping back into his voice, the one that had made me trust him, believe him, love him. "No," I cut him off. "You don't get to talk your way out of this." His face hardened. "You won't get away with this. You think we don't have security? In 30 seconds, this place will be swarming with—" "Actually," Julian's voice cut in through my earpiece, loud enough for Ethan to hear, "your security system is currently experiencing technical difficulties." The bedroom door swung open. Valerie stood there, her own gun trained steadily on me. "Drop it," she said, all pretense gone. "Now!" I kept my weapon pointed at Ethan. "Hello, Valerie, or should I say Elizabeth? We weren't properly introduced last time. You know, when you two left me to die?" Her eyes widened slightly at my real identity, but her aim never wavered. I said, "Drop it." "Interesting standoff," I said calmly. "I shoot him, you shoot me, or you shoot me, and my associates, who are currently surrounding this villa, come in and take what they want anyway. Either way, your perfect little life here is over." Doubt flickered across her face. "She's bluffing," Valerie said. I smiled. "Want to risk it?" In my ear, Julian confirmed. "Extraction team in position." The three of us stood frozen in that moment. A perfect triangle of betrayal. I could see Ethan's mind working, reevaluating everything he thought he knew about the mousy bank teller he'd manipulated and abandoned. "Let her go," he finally said to Valerie. "Are you insane?" she hissed. "She'll destroy everything." "She already has," he said, his eyes never leaving mine. "The moment she walked through that door..." Valerie's face contorted with fury. "I'm not giving up everything we worked for." What happened next played out in horrifying slow motion. Valerie shifted her aim toward Ethan. I saw her intention a split second before she pulled the trigger. Without thinking, I launched myself forward, colliding with Ethan as the gunshot exploded through the room. We crashed to the floor as a second shot rang out. When I looked up, Valerie was sprawled across the doorway, a bloom of red spreading across her chest. Behind her stood Alex, gun still raised. "You were taking too long," she said matter-of-factly. "We have the drives?" I nodded, clutching my side where fresh pain radiated. When I pulled my hand away, it came back wet with blood. The impact had reopened my old wound. Ethan stared at me in disbelief. "You took a bullet for me. Why?" I grimaced through the pain. I didn't want her to have the satisfaction. Alex moved forward. "We need to go, now. Julian says local authorities have been alerted." I struggled to my feet, swaying slightly. Ethan scrambled up beside me. "Take me with you," he said urgently. I laughed, though it turned into a pained cough. "Why would I do that?" "Because I can help. I know things about those drives, things your employers will want to know." His eyes were desperate. "Please, Juniper." Alex glanced between us impatiently. "Make a decision. The helicopter's waiting." Bitter irony twisted in my chest. A helicopter, just like before, except this time I was the one with the power to choose. "Fine," I said, "but try anything and I'll finish what Valerie started." We made our way through the villa, past stunned party guests, and out to the waiting extraction team. The night air felt electric against my skin as the helicopter's blades whipped overhead. Ethan helped me climb aboard, his touch gentle, uncertain. As we lifted off, I watched the lights of their perfect villa grow distant below us. The fairy tale ending they thought they'd stolen. "I never thought it would end like this," Ethan said, his voice barely audible over the rotor noise. I turned to him, feeling the weight of my gun against my hip, the ache of my reopened wound, the memory of pavement beneath my dying body. "It's not over yet," I said. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my Paris apartment, watching the sunset paint the city gold. Behind me, the door opened. "Package from Julian," Alex said, placing a thick envelope on the table. Inside was a new identity, a new beginning, and a note. "Debts paid. Be happy, Juniper." I crumpled it in my fist. Happiness seemed like a concept from another lifetime. But freedom? That I understood. Ethan had proven useful to Alex's employers. Useful enough to earn a reduced sentence in a comfortable minimum security prison, rather than the dark side I'd imagined for him. In exchange for my cooperation, my criminal record had been expunged. Juniper Ellis was officially dead, and free to become anyone she wanted. I thought about the girl I used to be, the careful bank teller who believed in rules and promises and love. She seemed like a stranger now, naive, trusting, weak. But maybe she wasn't entirely gone. After all, she'd saved Ethan's life in that villa, not out of love or forgiveness, but because she couldn't watch another person die, even him. The phone on the table buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Still looking over my shoulder. Are you still looking back? Ethan, always pushing boundaries. I deleted the message without responding and turned back to the Paris sunset. The future stretched before me, a blank page. For the first time in my life, I was the author of my own story. And I was just getting started.